If you enjoy cheesecake, but you don't want to bake anything that's too fussy, I may have the perfect solution for you here. This is my blueberry yogurt cake, a recipe I got from watching a few foreign cooking videos. And I'm adapting it to make it lower in bites, points, and calories, but also to fit a more standard US pan. So if you'd like to see how this is made, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I'm here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is mine, but it's a take on a recipe that I've been seeing online, especially in a lot of foreign cooking videos, and it is for a blueberry yogurt cake. Now in their videos, they typically do it in a 6-inch cake pan, which may be a little more standard in their country, but it's not as standard here. And even though I have one, because I used to bake quite a bit, as many of you know, I'm not going to do the same thing because most people don't have 6-inch. They usually have 8 and maybe 9, sometimes 10. And this is my first time doing it that way, so I am going to have to check the baking time and make sure. I'm going to start at about 30 minutes. I think it'll probably take about 40 to 45 minutes for this to cook, but we will see once we get there. But this takes very few ingredients, so if this comes out well, it's going to be a quick, easy dessert. Well, quick and easy to prepare, but then you have to refrigerate it for a few hours. So there is a little waiting involved, but we don't have to wait for the ingredients because here they come. I have, of course, my cooking spray. Here I have 2 cups of plain non-fat Greek yogurt, and that is a little more yogurt than I've seen in other videos because I'm trying to, as I said, make this fit into an 8-inch pan, so I'm going a little bit higher on the yogurt. Here I have 4 eggs. Those are at room temperature, as is the Greek yogurt, because you want this to come together pretty quickly. Here is 1 cup of blueberries. Now you can use fresh or you can use frozen. If you do use frozen, I wouldn't suggest thawing them first because then they tend to seep their color into whatever you're making. So I would go in frozen if you're using frozen. And again, this is a departure from theirs. Most of them I saw had about 1/2 cup of blueberries, but I wanted this to be really blueberry forward. Here I have 1/2 cup of flour, and that is just regular plain flour, all-purpose flour, what have you. And here I have 1/4 cup of sugar replacement. Now I may want to go a little higher on the sugar replacement because I did increase the yogurt. And while I increased the sugar replacement a little bit, I'm not quite sure it's going to be enough, but I didn't want it to be overly sweet. So that is why I went with 1/4 cup, but we'll see how this turns out. So those are all of the ingredients. Let me shuffle a few things around and we're gonna get started. This comes together pretty quickly. Okay, so I have my 8-inch cake pan. I sprayed it lightly with the cooking spray. I also have a piece of parchment. Typically in a lot of these recipes, they line their pan with parchment so it's easier to lift out. This is gonna be kind of a soft cake, kind of like a cheesecake almost, so it can be a little fragile. So having the parchment will really help. You can't just put it in here like this. I also can't just line the bottom and the sides because I need to be able to pull it out. So what I'm going to do is take the parchment paper and crinkle it up into a ball and then uncrinkle it. And that makes it a little more pliable, a little more maneuverable. It's not so stiff. So then I am going to press it into the pan and try to get the shorter sides up as high as they can be so that the cake will be fairly round. I don't want to have too many creases in the side. It's going to happen, but I don't want to have too many. So I'm just trying to make sure that the sides are up. Then that's done. I'm going to set that aside, bring in my bowl, and then I'm going to get my hand mixer and bring that in. You could do this with a whisk, but I want to make sure that everything is incorporated, and sometimes whisking for me with my muscle and nerve issues can be a little challenging. So I'm just going to bring that in. Now to this bowl, going to add the yogurt, eggs, sugar replacement, and flour. And I'm just going to blend this together. Now that only took about 45 seconds or so. I want to make sure that the eggs are incorporated well, because that's what's going to give us the lift in this. As you saw, we have no baking powder, no baking soda. So you want to make sure the eggs are beaten in well so that it gives a lift to this cake. Now that's done. Going to add in the blueberries and just stir those in gently so that you're not breaking them. And you can also scrape down the sides to get any flour that may be lingering there as well. But that's all there is to that. Now I'm going to bring in my cake pan again. And I was thinking you could add some lemon zest to this. I may end up adding a little bit of vanilla extract to it as well. But again, I wanted to stick as close to the original as possible, give this a try, and then make any changes. But all of this will be in the recipe on the blog. So now I'm going to pour this into my pan, and I'm just going to give it a little shake just to partly get any air bubbles out, but also to level it out as much as possible. All right, so I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. As I said, because of the size, this should be a little quicker than the ones that I saw online, which went for about an hour. So I'm going to check it around 30 minutes, but it'll probably go about 40 to 45 minutes. But I'll tell you exactly how long once we get there. What we're looking for is for it to brown around the edges, maybe start pulling away a little bit from the paper. So I'll show you what that looks like once we get there. So let me get this in the oven and I'll be back. All right, so here we have it so far, and it did dome up quite a bit and gave me a split in the middle, but that's no big deal. It sunk a little bit because I had to turn on all the equipment and had to have this sit for a moment. So it is a bit smaller than it was when it first came out. And you'll see it's not as brown around the edges as some recipes claimed, but that's fine. The center is set. You can put a toothpick in the center. I also checked the temperature, and it's at 200 degrees, which should be perfect for this to set. I now need to let this cool to room temperature before I cover it and put it in the refrigerator. Then it's going to be in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. So I will be making dinner in a little bit, and then after that I'll come back and let you know what we thought of it and what it looks like. So give me a few hours and I'll be back. Okay, it has been a few hours. I had let the cake cool down to room temperature, then covered it with plastic wrap and put it into the fridge. Now, you may want to put a piece of paper towel on top before you cover it, because sometimes there will be condensation that will drip onto the cake, but it shouldn't bother it too much if you don't. But now, since I made this little parchment sling, all I have to do is just lift it right out. I'm going to transfer that to a cutting board and then open up the parchment. And it looks really nice. You can see there is some browning around the edges that you couldn't see with the paper there. And I believe I forgot to mention when I took it out of the oven, it was in there for about 38 minutes. So I'm going to put 35 to 40 minutes. You may want to just check at 30 minutes just to make sure your oven's not a little hotter than mine. Now I have that there, I have a knife, and I have a container of hot water here, and I have some paper towels. What I'm going to do is dip my knife into the hot water to get it nice and hot, wipe off any of the liquid, and just keep the knife hot, and that will help to cut through the cake. Now you don't have to do that, it just does make it a little smoother to cut through. Sometimes when you're trying to cut into a cheesecake or a cake like this, it will kind of pull a little bit as some of it builds up on here. So I just find it easier to do it this way. But I'm going to dip this in for a moment and just get that hot and take it out, dry it off. Like I said, I'm just looking for the heat, not the moisture. Then I'm going to cut this in half first and see how smoothly that came through. And I'm going to do that each time. And I'm just going to cut all 8 slices now, so that way when I want a piece, I can just go and grab one. I don't have to worry about cutting it and maybe throwing off the proportions, but just cut through, again, halfway through, warm up the blade, and continue to cut all of these servings. But see, it went through very easily. You get a little of the blueberry, but you don't have a bunch of the cake sticking to it. But now that is done, I'm going to take up a piece and show you what it looks like. This is going to serve 8, and there you have it. It looks just like a cheesecake, a little more firm perhaps, but it looks very nice. Now, as I said, I was altering this recipe slightly to fit into an 8-inch cake pan, but I will let you know what the nutrition facts are for how I made it here. If anything changes, that will be in the recipe. But I will let you know right here, first of all, what we thought of it, because as I said, it's an experiment of sorts. So we haven't tasted this version of it yet. So now let me tell you those nutrition facts. For 1 slice of this cake, again, it makes 8 servings. It is only going to be 1 Better Balance Bite or Old Blue Point. I'm on the Healthy Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan, and that's around where their current plan is. But if you are following calories, the calories for 1 slice of this is going to be 105. And if you are following macros, the fat is 2.5 grams. Saturated fat is 0.8 grams. Protein is 10.1 grams. Carbs are 16.5 grams. Fiber is 0.7 grams, and sugars are 3.6 grams for 1 slice of this cake. Now, if you wanted, you probably could replace the flour with some protein powder. I have not tried that yet, but I have done that in other recipes, so that might also be a way to alter some of those macros. But as I mentioned before, you could add some lemon zest to this if you wanted a lemon blueberry. Probably even a bit of the lemon juice. I would likely do about a tablespoon of zest, which is about 1 lemon, and maybe 2 tablespoons of the lemon juice. And you could use other fruits in this if you wanted. Chopping up strawberries would probably work, but there's going to be more moisture seeping into it, so it may need to bake a little bit longer. But I hope that you enjoyed this recipe and this video, and if you did, I'd appreciate the usual: like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit that notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Such as tomorrow, this is one of the weeks that I am going to be doing a live on Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're around tomorrow in the afternoon, you have nothing else to do, I hope you'll join me. Now, the recipe for this, of course, will be on the blog. Any changes that I may make will be in the recipe that is listed on the blog. But the link to the recipe is down below in the description box, as well as the link to the blog itself. And speaking of my recipes, there's a link to my cookbook, and that is a link to the US Amazon. If you're in another country, you'll probably have to search for it, Recipes with Roy Cookbook. And speaking of Amazon, I also have my Amazon storefront down there. If I've used anything on the channel that you're interested in, it may be there. And speaking of shopping, I almost forgot to mention my 2 stores. If you can help support the channel by purchasing an item, that would be great. We have things like this apron, we have hats, t-shirts, mugs, etc. So if you can support the channel in that way, the links to the 2 stores, I have a Fourth Wall and a Zazzle store. They both offer slightly different items. Those are linked down below. Also down there, of course, is my social media. There's my Instagram and a few Facebook groups that I'm part of. So check out that description box for all sorts of information. And now I think we need to go taste this cake, and hopefully I have another dessert to add to the rotation. I hope you'll be trying this yourself very soon. So until next time, bye.